Excellent.
Hi, everybody. My name is James Ledoux, and this is a supplemental interview for my HypnoThoughts Live 2020 talk about instructional design. Joined today by Chris Thompson, multiple course creator, co-founder of the MMHA Online Academy with Mike Mandel, and he calls you the 2IC of the Hypnotic Storm Riders. That's right?
That's right.
So welcome, Chris. Chris is a hypnotist, a course creator, an entrepreneur, a Tesla owner, a father, a gymnast, a BJJ black belt. So an expert in hypnosis, as well as I'd say, what's higher than a black belt in course creation?
Oh, I don't know. I guess I don't know.
They start putting those red stripes on, right? Once you get past a certain point. Great.
Yeah.
So this is a supplemental talk. We won't necessarily spend a ton of time about my theories of instructional design or those sorts of things. But what I wanted to invite you onto the talk for was your real world application of these principles. Just full disclosure, I'm a member of your online academy. I've attended a week-long class with you in person. So I've seen both how you do instructional design in person and teach classes, as well as observing your content and the content that Mike puts out from a course perspective. So I think I have a pretty good understanding of at least how your courses feel from an end user perspective, but I'd love to unpack some of how you approach the topic, if that's okay.
Yeah, sure. Jump right in and I'll answer as many questions as I can.
So what was, you have multiple products. Was your first product or your first online course, was it the parents talking to children?
Yeah, that was back in, so around 2008 or so, I launched a product called Talking to Toddlers, and it's still alive on that website today, talkingtotoddlers.com. And the intention was really just at that point to take what I knew about hypnosis and NLP and apply it to parenting. And I wanted to become an entrepreneur. I was looking to exit myself eventually from a financial position, which I've done now, which was awesome. So that was really my first approach. And at the time, it was an audio program, so it had no video component whatsoever. It was purely written and recorded to be like an audiobook. And I was thinking about channeling the Tony Robbins approach of motivating parents to really think differently and give them homework assignments and that kind of stuff. So that was my first thing. Yeah.
Wow. And I've seen at least the marketing videos for that. And then did you, at least the marketing videos have sort of that sketch, that doodle type approach, don't they?
Yeah, that was how many years ago? I guess that was around 2012 or something like that. I hired Vince Palco from AdTunes. I think his company's called AdTunes. And back in the day, those whiteboard drawing instructional style videos worked really, really well.
Yes, those are awesome.
Yeah, and I had a regular PowerPoint style sales video, and I used the exact same script, but just switched it over to that whiteboard drawing style. And it actually improved conversions by more than 100%. So that was interesting.
Yeah, that's very interesting. So,
and I'm pretty sure I paid him, just as a nugget of interesting info, I paid the guy like $16,000 for that.
Wow.
So you can get it done a lot cheaper now, I'm sure.
Well, yeah, now you can get an off-the-shelf product for $100 and do some of it yourself with drag and drop. Might not be at his level of quality, but you could get an approximation, obviously. So that's amazing. And so you started back in 2008, and then since that time, you're a co-founder with Mike Mandel, who's one of my hypnosis mentors, my number one hypnosis mentor, with the Mike Mandel Hypnosis Academy. So talk about that transition where I guess Mike saw what you were doing with course creation and the success you were having, and then you guys decided to team up and build courses for hypnosis?
Yeah, what happened is around that same time of 2008, when I launched the Talking to Toddlers product, it was coming out of having looked at Tim Ferriss's work in the 4-Hour Workweek, which I'm sure you're familiar with, Tim Ferriss and all that stuff. So a few of us who had done some NLP and hypnosis training in Mike's class years ago had stayed close and held a little bit of a weekly mastermind type of meeting. And one of the guys, he brought a DVD burned like with a bunch of stuff on it. And he said, I filled this up with a bunch of stuff, but the most important thing is this audiobook from this guy, Tim Ferriss. I think you should read it. It's called or listen to it. It's called The 4-Hour Workweek. Yeah. And I was like, oh, that sounds weird, but I trusted the guy. So I listened to it, and thankfully I did, because it was life-changing. Now, as part of our homework with each other, we all had to come up with 3 business ideas. And 2 of the 3 business ideas that I came up with were Talking to Toddlers and Mike Mandel Hypnosis. I figured, well, I'm friends with Mike, and he's got these CDs that he sells when he's done a stage hypnosis show. But I gotta imagine there's enough people who show up and don't have cash on them, and then they probably Google search him later, or whatever the most popular search engine was back then. And they're looking for Mike Mandel, and he has no online presence whatsoever, other than some agents that
Right.
you could go hire him for entertainment shows and things like that. But he had no presence to sell his CDs. And I just proposed to him, hey, how about I buy them from you, and then I'll pop them in the mail, while I'm at work, and I'll just collect money via PayPal. I'll set up a WordPress site. And so there was no course creation at that point. I was just kind of a middleman. I was just selling his CDs. But over the time, as you correctly suggested, yeah, he listened to my Talking to Toddlers audio program because I was asking for a testimonial, which is always a good idea, right, to get some testimonials. Right. And he listened to it, and he said, one day he calls me and he says, Chris, I was just listening to your product. It sounds really good. You recorded that at home? I said, yeah, just like a Blue Snowball microphone, cardboard box with some carpet in there to prevent echo, and plugged it in my MacBook. I said, well, I've got this product in mind that I want to create called the Navigator System. How about we partner up on it, and I'll design it. You can basically produce it and put it up on the website. I thought, sounds good to me. I was surprised because I know he has a lot of experience doing real pro level recordings
Right.
in proper studios. But the technology was evolving such that we could do this at home now. So yeah, that's how Mike and I got started. We started with the Navigator System was the first project we worked on together. And then a few other products along the way, like the pain management, the insomnia, the stage
Right.
fright and performance anxiety, all the other things that are on the site. And eventually I talked him into the idea that we should create the Mike Mandel Hypnosis Academy and put everything that we teach in the architecture of hypnosis, the 5-day class that you attended live,
Right.
everything in that 5-day class. I thought, we're getting so many people who would benefit from this training, but there's no way that they're going to justify at wherever they are in life right now, the thousands and thousands of dollars required for the plane ticket, the tuition, the hotel, the food,
Right.
and the time off work. Right. So
time off work, yeah.
Yeah. And I had enough experience at this point in putting together some of the courses that I've been working on. I thought it's going to be video. It's going to be more complicated, but I'll figure it out. I've always had this belief that if it's doable, I'll figure it out. I'm not Elon Musk. I'm not going to build a rocket that
really
goes to
serves
Mars.
You well.
Yeah, but I can figure most things out, and I just don't quit. I'm like a bulldog, biting the hockey stick or whatever. I will not let go until I figured out
Right.
how to crush it. And so we put that together over the course of about 6 months and launched it back in 2013.
Okay. Yeah, so I took the live class in 2016, and at the time I was like one of those people you were talking about, where I wasn't sure I could justify flying to, explaining to my wife, not that she would limit me doing something, but just, yeah, I'm going to, fly to Toronto. I'm going to take a week off work, at my billable rate. That's a significant amount of money. But I was really interested. I got hooked into your work and Mike's work through the podcast, like probably a lot of people that may be watching this. We didn't mention that you're also a successful podcaster, talking about brain software and these hypnotic techniques, and it all builds upon itself. But it's interesting. So at the time I was doing the math, should I fly up there and take the class, and here's the price? Or at the time you were doing an amazing offer, which was one price gets you the live class plus the online academy afterwards. And it was only a couple $100 difference. So I was like, this is a no-brainer. I went up there. And one of the things, I don't know if you know this, but at the time I was in a job that I liked the people that I was working with, but I just wasn't fully satisfied, and I wasn't working for myself anymore. After I took the class, I literally asked for a raise the next week. They wouldn't give it to me, and I'd been there for multiple years. And I realized at that time, in that phone call, this isn't my career-ending job. They're not doing the things that, so I just, at that moment, and I think it was the impetus of the class, I realized, hey, these guys are doing stuff they love. They're having fun. This class was amazing. And I just came back. I quit that job, started a new job. And then since that time, I've continued to just learn hypnosis along the way. I've experienced all of your products with the exception of the Talking to Toddlers. And it's interesting as you tell that story, where the Navigator System, I've taken that class, or that audio program. I've taken all of those little ones, but the quality of it it just keeps getting better. So if anybody's on the fence thinking about Mike and Chris's products, I would recommend the lifetime membership. It just keeps getting better. One of the
Thank you.
products you just launched was the self-hypnosis product, which is amazing. I thought
Yeah, that's probably the most recent one.
That's one of the most recent ones, but I thought maybe we could talk about that class, how it came to be, and sort of unpack your process along the way.
Yeah, actually, that's a good one because it's fairly top of mind, and it actually turned out differently than we originally planned it. So when I'll give you a bit of a background on the foundational approach for the marketing side of it, and that is we have recently taken our what we call the Personal Development Academy.
Yes.
And well, somebody's trying to call me, so I'm just gonna hit decline on that. Hopefully, it didn't screw up our picture. Are we still good?
We're good. As long
Okay,
as
awesome. So
still recording.
okay, awesome. So we were spinning out our personal growth stuff as a separate membership. So instead of selling it as a one-time fee, I wanted to turn it into a recurring subscription-based product. I find that these things, they make it more affordable for someone to come in and say, justify, hey, it's $27 a month. I get access to everything. And if I want to stay in for 6 months, 2 months, 1 month, whatever, or just try it out and say, no, not for me, give me my 27 bucks back. That's fine, right? It's a good way to make it very low friction for people. And as part of making this even more valuable, I want to add more products to the portfolio that we're giving people inside of this bundle. And I thought, well, what I learned from Digital Marketer, a company called digitalmarketer.com, Ryan Dyson, their founder, they always talked about the idea of creating little offers that lead into bigger offers. So things like the product we have called the Anxiety Solution, or this one, Easy Self-Hypnosis, that we were creating. If each of those could get marketed individually for a specific thing, like, hey, here's a product for self-hypnosis, and you can buy it or you can get it included in the membership. And then that gives people two choices, and the membership is positioned as, this is way better value. So rather than spending 50 bucks or whatever it is to buy this course, spend 27 a month and get everything. So even if you only wanted it for 1 month, you go through, binge watch, kind of like a Netflix special, and learn it and move on. So to create that, originally Mike and I thought, we're going to go on camera together. We're both going to be on camera and engage and make it fun. But we ended up with COVID hitting, and of course that slowed us down dramatically. And when we decided, okay, we want to get this out, rather than have a bigger editing job and having, Mike here and Chris here, and we're talking, and then we're going to screw it up a lot more because we haven't done a product like that yet. We're going to have to do a lot more editing, a lot more shooting. And one of our planning meetings, I said, Mike, why don't we just simplify it and let's make this just you on camera. So I'm not involved on the camera part of this at all. But the process we went through was intended to be both of us. And all we wanted to do is take everything that we already knew about self-hypnosis, supplement it by learning more, by reading good books on the topic, and of course, always crediting the authors when we're talking about their material, and then putting together a really good quality video-based training on self-hypnosis, because I find it didn't really exist in, well, maybe I'm wrong and just haven't done enough research on it, but I know there are, hiccups, lots of books out there on it.
Yes.
But I didn't see really video training. And what I find that we do well is we make engaging videos that are fun and bite-sized chunks. So if it's going to be 30 videos, they're not hour-long videos. They're 5 minutes maybe. So you get something of value in that 5 minutes. So if you want to study that topic and you just have a few minutes here and there, you can get through the course in bite-sized chunks and you never get bored or forget where you were in that marathon video. So the way we produced it was basically brainstorm, what do we want the method to look like? What techniques do we want to teach? Read the material that we wanted to read to supplement our own existing knowledge, add that into our framework of kind of table of contents. Then we made essentially what I call ugly slides in Google Slides. We could have used PowerPoint or whatever. We just, what I called ugly slides. Just make the ugly slides that are literally just the bullet points that we want to cover in the particular video. So each slide is a video.
Okay.
If you can't fit the information on a slide, you should probably have more than one video. Yeah, quite. That was sort of the theory. We had a couple that were like 2 slides, but for the most part, it was 1 slide equals 1 video. And all we were doing is taking the content of that slide, making sure that we knew exactly what was going to be said, more or less, putting that on an iPad in front of a teleprompter, and then just having Mike stand there and deliver the training for that particular slide's worth of content. So we designed all the content in maybe about a month, and
Okay.
then we shot the whole thing over about 4 weeks. And while we were shooting, we had the editing going on in parallel. So I had 2 people involved in the editing of that program while we could focus on next week's video shoot.
Oh, wow.
So literally, I would say a week and a half after we finished shooting, the product was completely edited and ready to go.
Wow, that's amazing. So couple things that's noteworthy there is you planned it out, did a brainstorming session. Was that on paper or just out loud and typing notes, or how did that work?
It started off as a mind map. We have,
Okay.
I think it's called MindNode, whatever the
Mm-hmm.
iPad. It was like a cloud synchronized,
Yep.
wonderful program called MindNode. And Mike and I both had that on our iPads, or we'd go online together and we would just brainstorm, like, what is it going to look like? Then we turned it into a, like an organized list in an, we had to take all the concepts and then say, all right, so what is the introduction, the middle, and the end? Like, what's the flow we're going to take people through that seems like a logical approach that we would use if we were teaching this in front of a classroom, which
Cool.
obviously have to linearize it to some extent. Once that was done, then we just moved all of the different ideas into the categories. Okay, well, this is the introduction section. This is the how to hypnotize yourself section. This is the how to do generative change section, or whatever it
Yeah.
is, right? And then at the end, we had, okay, this is going to be more like the Q&A section, which we actually were going to do video, but we decided, you know what? To make this even better, let's throw away the Q&A at the end as a video, and let's make it more of an engaging interview, like a podcast. So we
Yeah.
turned it into 2 audio sessions that I think work out much better. We don't really need to be on camera to just discuss things.
Right.
So that
Yeah,
worked out pretty
and
well.
that's amazing, and that's sort of a similar process you followed in the architecture for hypnosis, when that you have the video lessons. There's a little text summary
Yes.
of each. There are there's summaries at the end of each topic where it summarizes the key information, and then that's all supplemented by an external or a certification where you basically took all of the most important pieces of information and then wrote multiple choice questions about those that are
Yeah.
tough. If you're interested in taking a tough class, they're tough but fair. I've said that in the academy, and I'll tell you as well. As an instructional designer, they're amazing because I had taken the class live and I'd watched all the videos twice, but I still had to really work to go through those questions, and it really felt like pushing my knowledge even further. They reinforced, and there were a few topics I had to go back and study again because I didn't remember who the father of video motor signals was, but really, really amazing. So it's interesting to see how you approach that process with Mike. And one of the things you talked about was moving things around. And I think that's a great concept for people to take a hold of, which is start lo-fi or online with the mind map. Mind maps are amazing. If you're not experienced with those, go check out some YouTube videos. They're very easy concepts. Then chunk that information together, grouping light topics. You're going to make associations between the topics, which may help with transitions or reorganizing.
Yeah.
You're probably going to notice some gaps that you can fill in either with books, supplemental materials, or something like this, which I would call a subject matter expert interview, where I'm asking you about how you approach your process, and that's going to inform, what I'm going to share in my talk. So it's really a flawless example of how you can do this process. And one of the things I liked about what you said, and something Jason Linett hit on, was the outsourcing. So you could have edited all this yourself. You've done that before, but you decided to harness the power of 2 video editors to let the product move that much more quickly. So maybe everyone doesn't start off that way, but that's something to think about down the line, which is maybe outsourcing the transcript of the product, or outsourcing the editing, or definitely the graphics. I know you guys have an expert graphic designer that you use for all of your stuff. So there's really good nuggets there.
Yeah, that's absolutely. I can give you a bit of a contrast over the history that we've been doing this, if you want. Like when we started out and we did the architecture of hypnosis, and we were turning that into, so the architecture of hypnosis is our live training, and we wanted to turn that into the Mike Mandel Hypnosis Academy, MMHA. And in those days, we were extremely frugal around our spending. So we had a camera we spent some money on a nice camera and stuff. And I bought Final Cut Pro for my Mac.
Okay.
And I was behind the camera and I would film everything. And then when Mike would go home after we'd have lunch and chit chat, then I would spend the next week getting all those videos edited. So we would shoot one lesson and then I would edit it over that week, all by myself, Final Cut Pro, everything. And it would take a long time, right? We could only literally get that 1 hour, maybe lesson shot in a week. And then
Right.
When I say I edit over the course of a week, it would take me about a full day. Now, if I was acting like a real CEO, I would never have done that, because that day I could have been spending building the marketing automation and different processes around what's going to take the business to the next level. So that was then.
Right.
Years later, we ended up hiring a guy, Ross, in the Philippines, and he's been working, I'd say he's been working for us full time for probably about 6 years now. And so he does all the video editing. I do not edit any more videos. I used to edit all our podcasts. I don't do that anymore. He does that. He always did our graphics. But as soon as we got him and we were able to crank out things like, he's working for us full time, all of a sudden we came up with the Wellness Academy, the Personal Development Academy, our Graphology course, our Mindscaping course, and everything in between, everything else.
So
and
he's
then
a
what
real
would
force
happen,
multiplier for you.
He was, yeah, and he still is. And then it got even better, because at some point I had this realization that I should have had much earlier, that I still can't be doing all the things that I'm doing. So for example, if I'm sending him videos, I've got to send him all the details around what I want done. And that's going to slow me down from creating, let's say, another product. Well, my wife's working with us and she's wonderful at this stuff. She's probably the most detail-oriented and efficient people that I know in the world. And so if I record the videos and hand them off, well, in Dropbox, but you know what I mean, metaphorically, here you go. And then between her and him in the Philippines, they back and forth, she decides what it's going to look like. Here's the editing that we want to do. I don't do any of it. And I just get back a finished product and I look at it and go, wow, that's amazing. And we might review it and go, oh, you know what, let's add one more little graphic in here, or let's change the way this title looks. But it's 99% done the first time I see it. And that is amazing. Now, not everyone's we didn't start that way.
Right.
It took us years to get that way. Arguably, it should not have taken me so long. I'm slow. So my suggestion is look for ways to speed up your process. You'll do it in the beginning. You have to get your hands dirty. And I like that I know how to edit video, because then I can make the suggestions that in my mind, I know if I was doing it, I know how I'd be doing it. So I can suggest how I want it to look, and I can describe it using the right lingo.
Right. And then they can bring to the table even things that you don't know about, because you're not a full-time video editor.
Yeah. So now I get to do things like, I'll see a cool video. Let's say one company that I really admire is Thrive Themes. So they make the website plugins and tools that we use.
Right.
And the founder, Shane, and his company, they do really great YouTube tutorials. And I'll find a video and go, I love the way that they've brought in this kind of diagonal line with the title in here. And I'll send it off and go, hey, let's start modeling this. I think this looks really awesome. And then we'll do it with our own color scheme and some little tweaks. And it's fantastic. So I don't have to come up with the ideas anymore. I just go, hey, I like this. Let's model this. Let's bring it into the way we teach.
Yeah, that's amazing. And it sort of speaks to the process in the 4-hour work week, which is, you're going to start with things that don't necessarily scale, but you have that end goal in mind, which is building systems and mechanisms that, in theory could operate without you. That's how Tim designed his first business he talks about, which is, basically, how can I engineer myself out of this business? And so that's one of the things I wish I'd read early in my career, which is, I built myself a job as a management consultant, but not systems and processes and things where I'm integral to my business. I can't be extracted from it. But, with something like this, I could make a whole series of videos teaching people how to do instructional design that don't depend on me, spending hours and hours in front of, the classroom or the keyboard. You build it once and then continue to market and sell it. But the nice thing about the way you guys approach it is modular. So if something becomes outdated, you replace one video, not have to reshoot the entire thing. You can make corrections and update things, as long as I guess you could have continuity and make sure you're wearing the same t-shirt and the same lighting and whatever. But the thing I like about Mike's architecture of change is he's in different outfits and things all the time. It's the same process, it's the same approach. But one of the things I was going to ask you, did you release that over time? Was the whole course created when you released it, or did you build it as you went?
Yeah, that's a really good question. We actually, when we first launched in June of 2013, the MMHA rolled out, and I believe we had the first 6 or 7 lessons done. The plan was to do 24 core lessons, and those 24 lessons would each get dripped out over a 1 lesson per 2-week schedule. So if you signed up on June, I think it was June 26th or whatever it was, whenever we launched, you signed up, you got lesson 1 that day. And 2 weeks later, you got lesson 2. 2 weeks later, you got lesson 3, and so on and so forth. And that worked pretty well in my mind because, well, it's a subscription, and people are going to be working towards, at the time we had lifetime access that you worked towards. And
Right.
it was very convoluted and not very marketing friendly in terms of an administrative job. But it worked really well. And then eventually, so we had about, let's say, 6, 7 lessons done, and all we had to do was stay further ahead than our students were on the runway, right? So they were still taking off. We were already at 30,000 feet. We just had to cruise and keep going, keep building lessons. And eventually we had all 24 lessons done. And then, so let's say 6 months after that, not even, our students are getting lesson 24. We took a little bit of a hiatus in terms of creating new lessons at that point to figure out what do we want to do beyond this, because originally we just wanted to put all of the stuff that was in the Architecture of Hypnosis 5-day course over about a 1 year, like we envisioned it as being about a 1 year drip feed period. And then we ended up realizing the content's good, people like it, and there's more that we can pack in because this is a digital format, because like you said, it's modular and we can add whatever we want whenever we want. Why don't we create more lessons? So we created lessons on things like the basics of NLP and personal charisma and designing your future. So those were some modules. Then we did a lesson on mindscaping, a lesson on graphology. Those became good teasers towards the full products that we had available. So those were interesting. And today, what we've changed to is a model where you actually get all 24 core lessons immediately, and you get them in a free trial. So we've even opened it up more. People can get a 14. Currently,
Total
it's
binge
14.
mode.
Yeah, you can basically sign up for free for 14 days. You get all of the bonus content. You get all 24 modules. And we don't even tell people that there are really 32 modules.
Right. There's so much content in there.
We leave that as a surprise. So I think people are getting a lot more than they think they're getting. And that's another lesson, is if you have a huge course, you will overwhelm people if you attempt to explain how huge it is and how awesome it is. Pick the one thing that they really want. So like in our case, MMHA, it should be, we want you to join so that you can understand the foundations of hypnosis and become a confident hypnotist without needing any scripts anywhere, anytime, ever. And you'll know what you're doing for the vast majority of classic things in hypnosis.
Right.
And people, oh, that's pretty awesome. Then they come in and realize, oh man, we so over deliver.
You really do. And, I said it at the beginning and I'll say it again. If you're on the fence about the Academy, go and take the free trial. Somehow when this gets posted, we can share some links for people to do that and check it out. But it's really amazing. You can look at Mike and Chris's work on YouTube. Definitely check out their podcast, Brain Software. And I know we're getting close to the end. I wanted to sneak in one more question,
Sure.
which I think you're uniquely positioned to answer, which is, people are going to wonder about tools, right? So we mentioned you could use mind maps. Use PowerPoint when you shoot video. Obviously, you're with your smart camera, you have everything you need right here to start. But as you guys progressed, you moved, using WordPress, but now you use Kajabi. And so I can download the Kajabi app, and you've enabled it so that I can watch my courses anywhere I'm at, as long as I have a connection to the internet, which is amazing. Yeah. So can you talk a little bit about the tools that you think are amazing that are out there, whether it be WordPress or Kajabi or anything else?
Absolutely. So I am a fan of not having to deal with all of the, let's say, the security and the maintenance and all that stuff. So if you're running a course, even though you probably can do a good job of running it on a WordPress platform, and you can buy plugins that will take your WordPress site and make it more like a membership based site. I don't
Right.
do that for anything that we do with Mike Mandel Hypnosis. We run it all on Kajabi, as you said. Now, I've been with Kajabi since we launched in 2013. And back then it was the classic Kajabi. They went through a few iterations with different versions of their product, but they eventually launched, I think it was around 2015 or 16, maybe 2017. They launched one called New Kajabi, and now it's just plain old Kajabi. It's the only product they sell.
Okay.
It's phenomenal, and everything we do is based upon that platform. The beauty is, yes, it's a little bit more money to get started. So, but you got to keep in mind, if you're watching this and you're planning on running a business, this is far cheaper than rent. This is far cheaper than most of the utility bills that you're paying over the course of a year. It's
Right.
dirt cheap in comparison to any real world type of bricks and mortar operation. So get a good platform, because now you have a real company with engineers and salespeople and marketers who are able to fix these problems and make sure that your site and your whole online membership platform runs seamlessly for a little bit of money from you every year. It's not a big deal. You don't have to deal with it. I'm up here, as you can see. My video is not great because we're up at my in-laws' cottage on a lake, and I'm just relying on cellular connection here. Well, if the website was, if the members area was to go down, if I was on WordPress, I'd be the one dealing with contacting my hosting company and trying to figure out everything. That sucks. That is not freedom. But if something goes down and it's affecting all Kajabi customers, that whole company is on top of it. They're
Right.
a real company. That I love. So that tool, I think, is a really important thing to keep in mind. How are you delivering your courses? Use something where someone else is responsible for maintaining the platform and just
Yeah.
pay for it. It's really worthwhile. With
That's
respect to
amazing.
everything else, everything else, I would say, you have to invest something minimal to get started with decent video, and your smartphone, even like just a tripod that has a little adapter to hold your smartphone, and some LED panel lights, or in the case, I've got a window here shining natural light on me.
Right.
Whatever you're doing to get your video shot, it should be reasonably good quality. And actually, my HTL 2020 virtual talk is on exactly that topic of how to make videos. So that might be
Excellent.
worth for people watching, since this is all going to be in the same family, right?
Yes.
And yeah, editing software, you can learn how to do it yourself, but it's so much easier to pay somebody. You can go to a website like upwork.com and you can hire freelancers to do video editing for you, and invest in getting decent sound. So normally I would wear a lavalier microphone, but this is probably fine because I'm actually really close to my phone right now.
Yeah.
You're
No, it
probably
sounds
hearing decent
fantastic.
audio. So if you're totally strapped, just make sure you're framing yourself in such a way that you're fairly close to your phone. But if you're using a camcorder and you kind of got like a room set up, just make sure you've got a microphone on your shirt. You can usually buy these things for $100 or something like that. And so from an equipment standpoint, that's really, to me, all you need. So decent hardware to get good video, good sound, good lighting, decent framing. This is not great framing. I have no equipment with me whatsoever here. And then
But you
hosting it
improvised. You
on a
stacked it up on a few books to get it to the right height.
yeah, exactly. And if I could kind of flip it around and well, here, I'll move this around just so people can see what I'm talking about. Whenever you're shooting video, you want the light behind your camera. You can see the silhouette garbage picture. If I have the window shining on me, I get much better lighting. So just principles of video when you're doing that. Yeah, I would say know what you want to do, break it down into logical bite-sized chunks, structure it out really well, shoot one video at a time. That's maybe a 5 or 6 minute video at most, break longer videos into multiple videos, and put it up on a cloud hosted type of environment where you're not the one managing it. And Kajabi is great. I know other people like some of the other platforms out there too. There are quite a few. I love Kajabi. Those guys are awesome. They've done, right by me for many, many years.
Yeah, that's amazing. And
anything else that I didn't cover on that? Like, is there any other pieces of the puzzle that you still want to dive into more?
well, no, I guess one last question is, what have you taken from other courses that you've taken online? You mentioned taking information from books, but I know, for example, you're a budding gymnast and have been doing the gymnastic strength training. and it's been interesting to watch your progression over time. So what do you think they're doing well that people should consider modeling?
Yeah, actually, so just from you're speaking about a product called gymnasticbodies.com. I mean, I'm
Yeah.
really into gymnastic strength training. I love it. In fact, down in the garage here, I've got my ring set up on vacation so I can practice. Lots of fun. What actually I think is worth mentioning, and this is true for any good course that I've taken, is that you want to build a community around it. So you don't want people to just feel like they're paying you money to get some training, but if you can, build a community around it. So I learned this from Digital Marketer and their organization. When I first went to their marketing conference in San Diego years ago, they were marketing their membership called DM Lab, Digital Marketer Lab. I think it was about $40 a month. But they had a Facebook group that was, they used to use the old school forums, you know, like a vBulletin forum or
Yep.
whatever forums. You probably know more about this than I do, this forum software that used to exist. And again, complicated. Facebook makes it easy. You set up a group, you make it private so that people have to join. They have to maybe answer a couple of questions to be admitted. You let them in when they buy your training. You encourage them to introduce themselves in the group. And I saw all of this happening in Digital Marketers group. They're doing something right. So I started immediately just learning and modeling them. Same thing with Gymnastic Bodies. They didn't use Facebook groups. They used their own internal protected forum, but they blew up when Tim Ferriss interviewed Coach Christopher Sommer. Their business probably hit, multiple seven figures. They had so many customers coming in, and they did a great job. They had staff that would be in the forums that were answering questions. So if you had a question on a particular technique or form, or how do I get past this plateau, they had knowledgeable people answering questions in the forum. And that was really useful. So the dialogue back and forth, you could send in a video, like a private YouTube video. My personal YouTube video is just basically a bunch of unlisted videos of me doing exercises. So the coaches could watch them and give me feedback, right? Phenomenal value from doing something like that. So if you can build a community, and there's no easier way to do that right now than a Facebook group, and seed the community with good quality discussion, be there, support it. And recently in our community, we brought on a community manager.
I noticed that.
Yeah. And that was, I did not make this idea up myself. I learned it from Digital Marketer because I saw them do it. And I know the woman who was originally the community manager, a woman named Susie. She's a friend of mine. And she did such a great job in taking what was sort of an unstructured community and making it really awesome. And everybody was just so helpful. And now, for the first few years, I did that myself. I played that role in the group MMHA Engage. But it worked because now we are known as having the Facebook group around hypnosis that is the most supportive, inclusive, friendly, encouraging. I think that's a critical element. It's more than just a course, it's a community.
It's huge. And I posted last week in the community, and I don't know what prompted it, but I said MMHA Engage. Come for great hypnosis, stay for awesome community. And then people just liked it, bananas. So I just want to say thank you, Chris. This has been very generous with your time and your knowledge and your expertise.
Oh, you're welcome.
I'd encourage everybody to go watch Chris's talk at HypnoThoughts Live 2020. Check out their websites. If you're a parent, consider the Talking to Toddlers. And really appreciate it. And thank you so much for your time, especially during your family's vacation during the COVID and everything like that. So thank you so much, Chris.
Thank you, James. It's my pleasure, and I'm glad to do it.
All right. Talk with you soon. Thank you.
Record button off. We're all good.
Oop.
Oh, are you still recording?
I missed it.